Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello, and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we have back in the studio Dr. Robert Hoffman. Robert, welcome back. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Joe. Always glad to be here.
You just got back from another international trip. How did that go?
Yep, and I survived it.
All right, that's the most important part.
So you're doing better. You're just continuing to just melt that tumor away.
It's just, I looked at pictures about a year ago, and then I just looked at some pictures about a year and a half ago, and I've rewound this thing about a year and a half in 7 weeks. It's pretty amazing. Now, this last round was a little bit, I won't say tough because I'm out there working in the yard. It's just I get so tired. It really takes.
Yeah, you're taking a big dose.
Yeah. People ask me, is this a low dose?
That's what it takes.
Hell no, this is not a low dose. This is a big old dose. This is
we're not doing Dr. Feelgood,
Oh, no, nothing about it.
We got to get rid of this thing.
But you know what? I'm sleeping fine. And I get out there and I work for a little while. I feel tired. I come in, take a nap. It's no big deal.
There you go. You go.
Adjust your life. And, this has all been about priorities. And this is the most important thing is getting this thing gone and getting back to health, whatever it costs me, whether it's my hair or some dollars or some inconveniences. Who cares, right?
That's absolutely correct.
And, we were talking about on the meeting last week, and I want to really impress on the listeners. This meeting is so important. If you have cancer or if you know somebody who does, this is a Zoom call that people from all around the world are joining, and they're sharing their life experiences with this notion of a methionine-restricted diet, methionase as a way to manage it a little bit. People are talking about, these are people that were diagnosed terminal years ago, and they're still with us. They're still alive and healthy. These are people that had tumors that they were told had to be operated on, radiated, and they didn't do those things. They did these other things that we're talking about, and they're today still living a cancer-free life. And I'm the poster boy today. I've jumped into this arena only a few months ago. I embraced this diet. I've embraced this enzyme and several other tricks, if you will, oxygenating things. And we came up with this chemo cocktail, not the one that the doctors came. The doctors came to me with radiation and chemo, high doses of both. And I just really felt in my gut that radiation is going to cause me more problems than it's going to help. And plus, I couldn't get it quick enough because I had some dental issues. And Dr. Hoffman and I came up with this cocktail of chemo, and I presented to them as a neoadjuvant, sort of a precursory treatment to the other things they wanted to do. They accepted it. And we've knocked this thing down to a fraction of what it was. And every day I take pictures of it, and Dr. Hoffman's running a case study on this thing. In fact, I wanted to tell you, I told you the last time we talked, I was talking to the medical oncologist, the one who's overseeing the chemo, and I had just gotten a new blood work done. They call it a NavDx, and it's a measure of the viral markers that cause this cancer. And the first time I had it done was I believe it was January, and the number was up at like 24,000. I don't know if that's what the measure of units is, but 24,000 is a number to go by. And today, or this last one I got about a week ago. Oh, no, I actually got the last one just after the first round of chemo. I took it as I was getting ready to do the second infusion, and it took a few weeks to get back. So I was doing these cycles every 3 weeks. So last week I had a video conference with her, and I asked, how did that last scan come up? She opened it up, And I saw her eyes kind of get big, and she's like, "Whoa." And I says, what's going on? And she goes, "It says 0. Let me go back and double check that." And she went back and read through everything, and it went from 24,000 to 0. And that was just the first session was completed. And I just finished taking the third session. So um, the plan right now is after this is done for Saturday, they take the pump off of me. I'll be completed with all 3 drugs, and I'm continuing, this very restrictive diet. I'm taking the methionine-restricted, and if I go even off a little bit off the chart, I double up the methionine-restricted. So I'm not giving this cancer anything to eat and any way to replicate, and this chemo is just tearing it apart. And so they're going to be doing a scan, what do they call it? A contrast CT scan on July 3rd, or no, June 30th. And then after that, we're going to discuss the next steps. And I presented to her the idea of maintenance chemo, and even in case this didn't do what we wanted, some other drugs that might be a way forward. But she kind of dug in her heels. And I presented a neoadjuvant solution, which is a precursor, not a finished solution. And we even talked to her about, that identifying it as being gone, essentially. But she said, well, you can't really do that without a surgery, because this thing was so prolific that we can't do a biopsy of all these different places. We have to be able to go in and see it. And I'm working with her when she's right. I asked for a low dose on the CT scan, and she says, well, if I do that, it's not going to necessarily tell us what we need. I agreed with her. I said, you know what? I'm not going to fight you on any of this. I'm just trying to get the most good with the least amount of harm, and that's all. And if you tell me that there's a reason, I'll work.
You need a normal CT, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I just have to propose the notion, if there's a safer way forward for me, that we're going to take it.
Nothing's going to happen to you from the CT. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I'm okay. I just, everything's at stake here, and I'm trying to come out of this knowing that I made the best choices possible. So that's kind of where we left off. And
So let me give you a couple thoughts.
Yes, please.
You're a medical oncologist, and you're your radiological oncologist, or whatever you want to call him.
Yes.
Are kind of saying, the standard is to get that radiation.
Right.
But the danger, Joe, for you is not the local recurrence. The danger is that it will recur distantly, especially in the lungs.
Right. You're right.
So that's why I am very much hoping that you can get some good chemo as a maintenance chemo.
Right.
To keep this thing from recurring at a distant site, especially the lungs.
I agree.
This is the problem of squamous cell head and neck cancer, metastasis to the lungs.
And
so right now your lungs are clean, your tumor's going away, and we got to keep this guy down just down. We got to keep it from rising up.
Absolutely.
And, just stopping everything now, and no, that's not going to work. So that's why we need a systemic. Methionine-restricted, of course, is systemic. The low methionine diet is systemic.
Sure.
The ivermectin is systemic. All good, all good.
Doing all those things.
But we need some chemo. In my opinion, we need some chemo in the mix.
I agree.
So just like Chihiro, she keeps that thing from coming back. Let's get the scans. You and I will have a talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it'll be time to talk again with Dr. Castro.
I agree.
Just put it straight to him. I want some maintenance chemo. Prescribe something for me. I want it.
Yeah, I agree. I want
it.
What I'm trying to do is I just reached out to the to the medical oncologist to get a set of the last blood work so that I can send both of those tests to you.
Yeah, and that's extremely. Your blood work is a great result. It's unbelievable.
And she said
But we
that
got to keep it that way, Joe.
I agree.
And no matter what your blood work says, no matter even what the CT scan says,
Right.
there's cancer cells around. They're for sure.
I
And
agree.
we just got to keep them down.
No, I'm right there with you. And I agree. As much as I was opposed to this chemo, I look and see what it did, and I look at the results, and really the toll it's taken on me is minimal.
And we think the chemo is working much better because you're combining it with methionine restriction. That's
Absolutely.
consistent with what we've done in the lab for 40 years on that, consistent what we've seen in other patients. By the way, Scott Davies,
Yes.
he had his med pet completely negative.
Nice.
So Scott is tumor free, and I'm begging him to get maintenance chemo, and he agrees.
Good. Sounds like he's got the right attitude, and
He does.
with the
He does.
miracle,
It's not a coincidence that Scott got this great result because he has a fantastic attitude.
huge.
He's taken everything possible to get that result.
Right. Yeah, this doesn't just happen. This happens with a huge amount of effort.
And the people with cancer have to take it seriously. It's a life-threatening disease every day, and it's got to be kept down.
Well, I spoke with a woman the other day, and she heard about me and the things that I've been doing, and her son is 27 years old, and he's got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's metastasized, and he is, they're religious people, and they believe in miracles and all this stuff. And I said, listen, a miracle doesn't happen just because you want it. A miracle happens because you go out and make it happen. And I said, I don't think you should worry about anything. I think you should take it seriously and approach it as something that will take your life if you don't. And worry doesn't help you, but focus does. And I had a nice long talk with her, and I told her about all these things that I've done, and I told her about our meeting, and I told her about you. I sent her all the links and stuff, and she says she's, gonna try to get through to her son the severe or the just the yeah. I mean, this is the most daunting thing that could ever come at you. It's the most important problem you could ever have to solve. And to sit there and go, I'm not worried about it, it's just basically closing your eyes and jumping off a cliff. And, she's going to try to get, I said, but she can't do it for him. Mom can't fix her son who's 27 years old. And I hope that, she says that, I was inspiring, and she says that she's really motivated, and she's going to try to get him to talk to me. And I hope he does. But you're right. The people that succeed, you got to have it as the most important thing in your life. You got to own it and realize that, you're the only one that can solve this. All the people, the doctors and the ideas, they'll have bits and pieces. Some of them might have good answers, but some might have bad answers, and you got to figure that out.
Absolutely.
So I'm like you. I want to move as far as I can ahead, even just in my mind as a solution. And I've got a few more days of this last round. Like I said, I've weathered it really well. I didn't even get any sores in my mouth this time. And 3 weeks after that, they're going to do the scan. But as soon as we get the scan done, I really want to.
And the latest, and another blood test.
Yeah. I think they're going to do the blood test and the scan about the same time. So we'll have.
Yeah. And we send that along to Dr. Castro.
Absolutely.
And we don't ask them, we tell them, we want maintenance chemo. Could you please prescribe what you think is best for us?
Exactly. That's where I'm at. Because I know the last time.
That's what you want. You got to tell the doc what you want. This is what I want.
Yeah. And I have no problem doing that, as you well know.
You bet.
I know the last time I talked to Dr. Castro, he was pretty much in agreement with the radiation, and he thought that, that's their standard of care and they're not going to go off of that. And, again, like you and I say, I'm the one who's hiring them, not the other way
Well,
around.
the problem, what's radiation going to solve right now? You're practically tumor free at the local site. So you get all this burn from the radiation there.
Right.
And if there's cells that have already moved out to various parts in the body, and you can say that that's 99.9% that it's happened. What's the radiotherapy going to do to that when you just put it on your neck? We need systemic.
I totally agree.
We need systemic therapy to prevent these cancer cells that have escaped from your primary tumor from growing elsewhere. That's what we need.
100%. And that's what got me. It was like, okay, that, the whole idea, luckily or fortunately, when they did the last CT scan, it showed it had not moved. And I believe it still hasn't. But
it's not detectable by CT. Exactly. You don't have any distant tumors, but you can just bet there's cancer cells floating around in your blood with all that.
Looking for a place.
The viruses that were picked up before.
Exactly.
They're out there.
I agree. And I also agree with the whole systemic notion. That's why, these oxygen therapies I do, they're systemic. The fasting, it's systemic. The diet is systemic. It goes everywhere. There's no place it doesn't go. So I'm trying to create an environment where the cancer doesn't have a place to land. But inevitably, something goes away or something, you let up, or inevitably there's a place where it finds its way.
Well, not if you don't let up.
Exactly. Well, I have no intention of letting up. I tell you, this is my life now, and I'm not. I don't have any false illusions that It's funny that the medical oncologist. I forget what the term.
What is her name?
Dr. Nabar. Hang on.
Spell?
Nabar. I will. I'll look it up, her first name, and I'll send you the information.
Would you, please?
She's a little Indian lady or some Middle Eastern, and she's very, she communicates well. And, again, I don't even fault these guys. They're trained away. They learn a certain thing, and that's their expertise. They're not necessarily.
But she was flexible enough to let you have your adjuvant chemo.
Absolutely.
And the other 99% of them wouldn't let you do that.
You're right. And I couldn't have done it without her. I can't just go and order those drugs. And so that, for me, I think even if we come to a parting of ways, she was instrumental.
I don't think you'll have a parting of ways, Joe. You'll stay with her. But you'll, just because if you get a prescription of something to take, doesn't mean you part the ways from her. You stay in touch and get your periodic scans and stuff like that. You still need her.
I still got this port in me, so until they take it,
don't take it out.
Oh no! I'm not doing anything like that. I'm prepared for the long haul on this. Whatever
there you go.
We need to do. I'm not going anywhere, and I plan to outlive my kids if I have the opportunity. And that's where I'm at. I really believe that I've got the ability to help a lot of people, and I believe I have an ability to help your work, and I think that's important.
Well, you're already helping it, Joe. You're such a great example.
Well, and I think that's a thing that, as people
I've learned a lot from you.
Well, that's how it's supposed to be, my friend. I think we're all supposed to learn from each other and grow from each other. And when there's something important, this is important work. This is literally changing the paradigm of medical approach to cancer. And I believe that if this worked this way for me, I mean, the listeners who are maybe hearing this for the first time, you got to understand, I was facing, I don't know how many more days I would have gone without this turning it around before it got really critical. I mean, I was getting choked out. I wasn't sleeping. I could hardly walk around my yard without getting dizzy. I was getting weaker and weaker in spite of all the things I was doing. and it wasn't enough. And I don't know, it was not a very good situation. And because of these things that have happened it's been 7 weeks, and it's reversed itself to the point where anybody who sees me today that has seen me months ago, their eyes open up wide open. They don't know what to say. They go, and it's not just this tumor shrunk. My energy's back. I'm stronger. I'm vital. I'm not 100%, but I'm approaching. I'm gaining on it every day. And whatever it is I did, somebody can't argue with that. They can't deny it. And
Nope.
so that gives me a voice. And so I can talk to any doctor, I can talk to any scientist, I can talk to any patient, and I can just tell them what I know, which is what I've done and what I saw. And I think that's important.
I think it's very important.
So I'm looking forward to getting this final blood work. Obviously, I'm a little, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm confident that I'm going to get what I want, but until you see it,
You're going to get what you want because we're
yeah,
not going to stop trying to get it. If Dr.
exactly.
Castro doesn't come through, we'll find somebody else.
I agree. That's exactly
And even a plain old doc can
right.
prescribe any medicine.
I agree.
You don't have to be an oncologist to just prescribe these drugs. A licensed physician can prescribe any FDA approved drug, no problem.
And especially if we come up with an oral solution that I don't need to have.
Like Chihiro, maybe you'll take Chihiro's drug.
Right.
It's probably active against any cancer.
I agree.
And she's hanging in there with it. And she keeps coming up with the negative scans.
Exactly.
We'll figure it out.
And I don't think even the blood work, I think I can order most of that myself. I don't think
you've got life extension. Let you order most things.
Right. So, I mean, in the worst of all case scenarios.
And you can go down. Another option, Joe, is to go down to Tijuana.
That's absolutely true.
That wonderful pharmacy in the middle there. I forgot, it's Mas something. It translates to most cheap.
Yeah, there you go. You
can get every drug there. A couple things, you have to go upstairs and pay $5 to the doctor, and he gives you a prescription. Right. 95% of the stuff downstairs is open for just pay. So if we have to, you'll go there.
Exactly, 100%.
We're going to get something that's going to be good for you, one way or the other. You're not going. Nobody's going to prescribe it. We've got the alternative of Tijuana.
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
I totally agree. And I think that's, again, another important thing. People get told, oh, well, you can't do that. And then they just...
it's very liberating. Very liberating. Yeah. I mean, in Mexico, they let people decide for themselves.
Agreed.
What the heck?
I've been down there before, and I'll go down again if I need to. And, that's the end of it. That's really what it comes down to. And I think that's the big message here, is for people to consider taking ownership of your own health. People go to doctors.
There's no other way, Joe.
I know.
If we just depended on the doctors, especially in cancer, most of us wouldn't make it. We need them. They're necessary, but they're not sufficient. We need the standard care, but we need more.
Exactly. And
We need more than the standard. The standard care is like Dr. Exame says, you take the standard care and you get the standard outcome.
right.
The standard outcome for almost all metastatic cancer is to die.
Right. You got 5 years and then you're gone.
Well,
And
you're lucky if you get 5 for most of them.
exactly.
Few
Exactly.
months.
And that's not even, if you think about it, most of these standard of care procedures, they don't enhance your quality of life at all. In fact, they do.
No, they're tough medicine, but we need them.
Right.
We like the chemo you got was
Yeah.
standard. It would have been more standard if you would have had the radiation on top of it, but
Right.
it was standard and
Yep.
it did great. And why did it did great? Because you're doing all these other things.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
if you just took those 3 drugs alone, I don't know what your outcome would have been. We don't know. It's not a controlled experiment, but we could at least have a good guess. It wouldn't be nearly what we're seeing.
I'm confident it would have not done what it did, and I would have.
But we need these chemo drugs. We need them.
I agree. I
And
agree.
people who deny chemo are just denying their life.
And the one thing the doctor did say when I presented to her some of the drug solutions that I came up with, she goes, there's a lot of good drugs out there, but just in her mind, this was not going to solve the problem. I needed the radiation. So I believe
And,
we
and
have
that's her experience, Joe.
exactly.
And that would have been the same for you if you weren't on methionine restriction and
I agree.
all the other things you're doing. No, she's right.
Well, and also
But she doesn't know anything about beyond what the drugs do.
right.
She doesn't know. She doesn't have the mind to learn because she's completely trapped within the guidelines. She went as far as she could go, kind of blessing your plan,
Right.
which was a miracle, was great. We love her for that.
Well, and she's blown away by it. So don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody,
You stay with her, Joe. She's an angel. You
I
stay
agree.
with her
I have no
for all your subsequent checkups and stuff. We need her.
absolutely. No, I totally agree. And I have confidence that she has my best interest in mind. She just
Oh,
does.
of course she does. Of course she does.
So, I think one of the things is that, when I'm presenting things to her, some of them are in different stages, some of them are still in trials, some of them are old information, and it's a mix of different things that I've brought to her, including that blood test that you sent to me. And she says, well, this NavDx is a really good for what you have.
It's great for now. And I have
Yeah.
something. I'll send this to you by email. We have another test that's very, very, very high resolution to look for rare cancer cells floating around.
Nice.
So it's all about the circulating cancer cells, circulating cancer DNA. These are great tests. Meanwhile, you've got the virus test. That's good enough for now.
Yeah. And for me, I mean, I think that as far as monitoring and testing, I'm going to do whatever I can, because I think that, the idea is, okay, so I get this thing down to 0. As far as we know, that's really what I can claim, is that as far as we know, we're at 0. And if they had their way, they want to come in and preemptively radiate and give me more chemo that will supposedly keep it from coming back. But as you just said, well, what if it's already floating in my blood and it lands away from there, which it's most likely to do, primarily in my lungs. I'm not radiating my lungs.
No, you can't. You can't radiate your whole body.
Exactly. So for me, the logic would say that I'm way better spending my time watching and looking at any possible marker that there is, and keeping an eye on it every month, every 3 months.
Absolutely. And that's why I like blood tests. That's why I like CT scans.
And then if you see anything go moving at all, then we get aggressive right away. And that's a big difference. See, remember, Dr. Hoffman, when I finally took action, I already had a lump sticking out of my neck. That thing was billions of cells, and it already had built an infrastructure. I had a city in my neck that I had to get rid of. If I had done this, on some kind of an early scan 2-3 years ago, it might have been a totally different battle, but it was because I had let it go so far. Well, now the fact that it has already been there and going away, I have this problem of circulating tumor cells that are never going to really go away. But I just can't give them a place to land, and it's an easier battle, and it's one that we can watch carefully and never give it a chance to do what it did before. So I'm in a much better position today than I ever was, and I'm never going to let it get to a worse position.
You bet.
Well, I know we're about burned out of time, but I did want to touch on a thing, and maybe there's a way that you can give a really quick overlook, or maybe we can get into it next time.
No,
But
go ahead. Give me a shot at it and we'll see.
when people talk about things like FDA trials and things like that, I know there's different stages. There's first, second, third types of trials. Can you just maybe give a quick outline of what each of these mean as
Okay. So there are what are called phase 1, phase 2, phase 3
right?
clinical trials. Phase 1 is basically a toleration test.
Okay.
They give you 3 different doses, escalating doses, and see how much you can tolerate. That's phase 1.
Okay.
Phase 2 is a test against historical results. Okay, everybody knows the results of 5-fluorouracil. We got a new one, and we're going to compare it with the historical results of 5-fluorouracil. Wonderful.
Okay.
That's phase 2. That's not a toleration test, it's an efficacy test. But it's not controlled. It's against historical data. Okay. Phase 3, it's the drug against placebo. You don't know if you're going to get the placebo or the drug. And hundreds of patients. And that's what phase 3 is all about.
Got it.
What do I tell patients? Clinical trials, you become a human mouse.
Right.
And the number of patients, one of the saddest things that I've experienced was this gentleman who was going to go on methionine-restricted for his little girl with brain cancer, but the doctor convinced him to go on this clinical trial and would not allow him to take the methionine-restricted.
Oh no.
And clinical trial, man, that's what I want. And I just had to shut my mouth.
Right.
So you're human mouse, and most of these trials, nobody knows if they're good or not. Hey, why should you do that when you can take drugs which have a long, long history of what they can do and what they can't do?
Right.
And so I'm pretty much against putting people on a clinical trial.
Okay.
Not totally. If I see something that the preclinical studies are so fantastic, okay, we can try. But generally, you're just a mouse. And you're just a mouse that's owned by the pharmaceutical company, trying to develop their next $1 trillion drug. And
Right.
That's okay. I'm all for that. But patients who are under my care, I care about them and I don't care about the pharma company. So.
And you don't even know if you're getting the placebo or the drug anyways.
Well, if you're in phase 3, you don't know.
And if that's something that's critical to
you're volunteering your life for the pharma company.
Right.
Screw that.
Yeah, I agree. I would never do it.
Yeah.
I am just ever so grateful for all the hard work that you've done and that you make yourself available, and you're just everybody I talk to that works with you and has worked with you, we all have the same things to say. You're doing amazing work. You are just a jewel of a human. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, it's for me, it's like breathing the
air. That's how you know it's for real.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to be heading up to the mountains this weekend. I will join the call if I have signal.
Okay, if you got a signal, you join. If not, you'll join when you get back from the mountains.
Exactly.
Enjoy the mountains and celebrate your great result.
I absolutely will. Thank you for joining us. And as always,
My pleasure, Joe.
awesome. And thank you to everybody who's supporting this show, and we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Bye to everybody.
Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.